Hello and welcome to the UCF podcast. This week we're talking about UFC 305, and I fucking hate this main event because you know what? The guy I want to win is probably going to lose. Let's get into it, Clark.
Yeah, let's talk about it, man.
Like my pros and cons lists for the two fighters in this matchup are as follows. For Dricus, I've written down on the positive side, excellent grappling and powerful. And then for the negative side for him, I have bumbling, easy to hit, and charges in. And then for Adesanya, I have on the positives, height, reach, counter punching, low kicks, great chin. And then for negatives, I have ring rust and started not doing enough recently. Or I guess for a while. For a while, he has like long strings of fights where he just doesn't do enough and is really boring. And that's kind of what I think happens in this fight, is that it's mostly just Dricus charging forward and trying to get to Israel. But Israel is like way taller and longer than he is. And he uses like low kicks and counter wrestling for a slow, boring 5-round decision.
Oh, I don't want that though.
Yeah, neither do I. And I also
to
like
just knock about.
Yeah, I would really like that. I would actually be fine with Dricus wrestling the shit out of Israel Adesanya.
I mean, that might be the path forward, dude.
Yeah,
control him that way.
I don't.
Because Israel's just going to sit back and kick him. You know what I mean? Like, he's got the reach advantage. He's been known to use that. I feel like if you get him in there grappling, that's how you win by decision, honestly.
You know, it's like actually my worst case scenario. I'm not saying that this is the worst case scenario, but it is for me. My worst case scenario is that Israel wins by knockout in like a really convincing fashion, and we have to deal with him as champion again. And not even just because he has like kind of slow, boring fights sometimes, or where he, is just not willing to risk it at all. Beyond that, Israel is like the most unlikable human being in the UFC. And we've had like convicted wife beaters in the UFC. Israel Adesanya is the only man that I'm aware of in the UFC to have posted a video of him jerking off his dog. The ugliness that exists between these two fighters was interrupted by Sean Strickland. But were you with us watching when Dricus won the belt and Israel came up to start yelling the N-word at him and like, "Say it, my African brother"?
I don't think I was there, but I heard about this.
Yeah, so here's the situation. Dricus du Plessis said, "I'm going to be the real African champion in the UFC. I'll show that you don't have to leave Africa. You can train here and still be a champion." This is not out of the ordinary. This isn't even like the first time a fighter has said something like this. Leon Rocky Edwards, who we just saw suck ass recently, said that he was going to be the first real English champion because Michael Bisping had to leave and move to the US to do it. Well, Leon was going to be the first guy to do it from the UK. There is no race-related talk going on here. This isn't about fucking colonialism, but that's what Israel Adesanya and Kamaru Usman, who were at the time, two African champions, they immediately made that a big fucking deal. You know who didn't make it a big fucking deal was Francis Ngannou, the guy who was actually fucking poor and like, well, he's trying to get through North Africa. Like the people in Morocco, the border guards keep like capturing him and releasing him in the desert with no water. That's not Israel Adesanya's life. That's not fucking Kamaru Usman's life. Those two guys had rich dads who moved to rich countries. And then Kamaru's dad ended up going to fucking jail anyways, dude. Israel ended up going to New Zealand out of all the options they had because they had options of all the first world countries they could move to. So it's clearly a nerve was struck, and Israel has been making this the most racially charged fight possible. Very strange. And, this is on top of the fact that he's the sort of guy who would jerk off his dog and post it to Facebook.
I still don't get that. Why did he jerk off his dog and post it to Facebook?
No one knows. Only Israel knows.
He's just fucking around, posted that.
Clearly, like from a deleted Facebook post that someone saved, here we find the,
put that
the
up.
horrors. Probably not gonna.
Put that up, dude.
And beyond that, right, when he showed up to the UFC, he also loved Naruto and was doing Naruto.
I was gonna say, he likes Naruto. He likes Death Note, which I think is pretty reasonable. The Naruto, I don't know. That's a bridge too far for me, man. I'm sorry.
Unforgivable.
I'm going with du Plessis.
right? Like, it's just so hard to pick. Like, this is the situation with this. I understand that this is supposed to be a predictions video, but sometimes when you're looking at a fight, you want a fighter to win so bad, you fuck with what is your rational thinking brain and its ability to make a rational decision.
You guys ever watch Dragon Ball Z? Do you remember when everyone like had to give Goku his power and how he actually like received it? That's kind of what we're trying to do here.
Pretty much. We're just trying to send our power to Dricus to be able to knock out Israel Adesanya. Now, okay, I have to just quickly break down why Dricus is probably getting knocked out. In a fight against Sean Strickland, in which he won the belt, Sean Strickland was able to bruise and smash Dricus's face in a way that we'd never seen in any of his UFC fights. Dricus is very easy to hit. And what's more is that your punches are going to be stronger because he's coming forward. Now, Dricus also hits like really, really hard. He knocked out Robert fucking Whittaker with just like a stray jab. Now, Robert doesn't have the best chin. He's an amazing fighter, but a little chinny, right? But still, he dropped him with a jab. And then once you get onto the mat with Dricus du Plessis, the man just has weird tricks, and he's so physically strong that he does really manhandle even some of the wrestlers in this division. It's just like, man, can he do what Jan Blachowicz did? And my answer is no, because Jan is just way more of a defensively sound fighter. Jan had, even more of a size advantage over Israel. He wasn't dealing with as much of a reach disadvantage to be able to get in. Dricus isn't known for like a body jab or mixing up targets. Again, going back to that Sean Strickland fight, there's very large stretches of that fight where Dricus, just like eats 2 or 3 punches to be able to come in with his own thundering combination. And a lot of people were really mad after Dricus won the belt. It split the fan base. I thought Dricus won, but a lot of people felt that Sean Strickland had won. Sean Strickland does not deal the same sort of damage normally that Israel Adesanya does. So when Dricus comes in on a straight line, charging to either punch or shoot a takedown, it's the easiest thing to counterpunch. And prior to his fight with Robert Whittaker, during his win over Robert Whittaker, I remember like yelling to our other brother, Andrew, about how
we're not brothers.
Dricus is, he's not actually that technically sound. He shouldn't be beating guys like he is. He's just like a physical freak. He's so strong. Those factors are less important when you get to the very top of the division. Everyone is, to some extent, an athletic freak. Everyone has an advantage over most of the division in some way. And he has 1 knockout loss on his record, right? He's never been knocked out in the UFC, but he was knocked out on the regional scene by, I believe, Roberto Soldic, who's like a Crow Cop protege, allegedly, something like that. That guy is actually like a monster. He really does hit hard, but like that goes to show that Dricus's chin is not invincible. He can take a punch really well, but I so easily see him getting frustrated by round number 3. He hasn't been able to get to Israel yet. He's been getting peppered with these low kicks that are crippling his ability to advance, and he just starts stumbling forward a little bit too recklessly, and he gets caught. That is probably how this fight is going to go. I'm praying, I'm kicking, I'm screaming in every way to hopefully change that outcome, but I have no real power in this realm. So, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions in this fight. But man,
I think
I hope Dricus wins, man.
Yeah, I mean, du Plessis, he's got to go through, I think, with grappling. That's his only real route to deal with that range disadvantage that he has. He has to get him to the ground, and he has to control him on the ground. And that's where he's got to deliver some ground and pound. He's got to show something to the judges, say, hey, look, I'm doing damage. Because if he stands up the whole time, he's probably is just going to get cooked. I don't even know if he'll get knocked out, but I bet you he's going to lose by decision if he stands up the whole time. He's got to get down there and use his grappling, and he's got to be the best goddamn grappling he's ever used. He's got to be absolutely controlling this guy to the best of his ability. Because Adesanya's got good takedown defense. He's not like horrific on the ground or anything. It's not his preferred route, but he knows what to do if you come at him with that. But I think that Du Plessis could nonetheless still challenge him in that realm. And that is his route. Go Du Plessis. I'm picking you. I'm picking him. He's probably not going to win, but I'm going to do it.
All right, we're both picking Dricus then.
I believe.
Fuck you, Israel Adesanya.
You were going to pick Adesanya.
No, I never. You know what I wrote down actually on my pre-fight notes?
Just the drawing of you crying.
Pretty close. No, I just wrote down won't pick because I really didn't want to pick Israel Adesanya. If we're both committing to Dricus, I'm all fucking for it. I was ready to not pick. I was ready to not pick.
Wow, not even going to pick at all. That's fucked, dude.
I was, because I don't want to pick Israel. I really don't like.
I mean, I think on average he is probably more likely to win, but there is a route to success for Du Plessis, and I'm going to bet it all on that. All my money, my house, my children.
Ooh, I don't do that.
That's it, right? That's the whole video. That's all we want to talk about. I
mean, that is most of what I want to talk about. There is like so much more you could say about this fight as well.
That's it.
Because I really think, okay, so if we're talking about how Dricus does this, right? Like we're saying that he's going to have to mix in the takedowns. He's going to have to use the grappling. I think looking at that Jan Blachowicz win over Israel Adesanya, it's the blueprint, man. It's the correct game plan. And other guys have tried that style of a game plan against Israel Adesanya. It's much harder for the shorter guys with shorter arms to pull it off. Marvin Vettori, I've seen a lot of people posting online, like, how is this fight going to be any different from Paulo Costa versus Israel Adesanya or Marvin Vettori versus Israel Adesanya, right? In those two fights, I think the big difference and why it won't be like the Costa fight is just because Dricus doesn't have the sort of quit that Costa has in him. So then it looks like the Marvin Vettori fight where Vettori chased Israel Adesanya around for 5 rounds and Adesanya just kind of ran away and peppered him and defended takedowns. Oh, I hope not. Like, I really hope not, dude.
Please.
Yeah. I did kind of shit on the rest of this card. I wasn't too hype on the rest of it. And I'm also just so heavily invested in the main event. I almost don't want to think about the rest of this fight card. But let's at least look at the main card. Why not?
Oh, let's look at the co-main event at least.
The co-main event. Kai Kara-France versus Steve Erceg. We got a little flyweight bout. Steve Erceg obviously just coming off of that close loss for the belt. Kai Kara-France coming off of 2 or 3 losses in a row. It's been a tough time for Kai Kara-France. He at times he looks like he could be a real problem at flyweight, and then he just gets smoked, dude. Like Brandon Moreno is such a boogeyman in this division because he technically isn't the champion, but he's on and off been the champion like a lot over the past 4 years over his like 4 fights with Figueiredo. And eventually losing to Pantoja, but I don't know. I now look at Kai Kara-France as being just a step below that title picture. And on the flip side, Steve Erceg had a very close fight with our current champion. Cut him really bad with like a counter elbow at range. He's also taller. He does have less reach, but I don't think that's really going to play a huge part because he's 4 inches taller than Kara-France. I think Steve Erceg has the better striking. He might get grappled in this fight. We saw Pantoja manhandling him a little bit, but Kai Kara-France does not have the strength that Pantoja does. So I would pick Steve Erceg in this one.
This one I feel is kind of a no-brainer. Kai Kara-France, not a bad fighter by any metrics, but I do kind of think that he might hit the peak and he might be on the other half of that parabola line now, where he's just kind of slowly going down. Steve Erceg, I think, he looked pretty good against Pantoja. I mean, everyone says it. He only had 3 fights in the UFC and then had a title shot. He did lose it. It wasn't a horrible loss. He went 5 rounds with the champ. I think that he's probably gonna clean up this Kiwi without too much difficulty. And he's on home turf, right? I mean, come on.
Total Kiwi decimation. No. Hey, that's what we're hoping for because Israel is from New Zealand, right?
He's from Nigeria, actually.
Oh, isn't it? That's so weird how his flag says Nigeria, but he doesn't live there.
Yeah, dude, he liked anime in high school. Fucking loser, dude.
Going down the card, we have Mateusz Gamrot versus Dan Hooker. This fight actually does get me excited and worried in equal measure because Mateusz Gamrot is the worst wrestler to watch at lightweight. He's a really good wrestler. He always pushes the action. His pressure is nonstop. But watching his fight is not like watching like an Islam Makhachev fight. He is only wrestling. He is not working towards finishes. He is a decision man. Wins by decision almost half of his fights. Right? Dan Hooker is flipped. We got most of his fights, most of his wins ending by KO. And actually, almost a combined 80% of his fights are ending by finish. The Gamrot has just a little bit over half. Now, Gamrot is the grappler in this one, right? Dan Hooker, the striker, more so. Dan Hooker has been in there with some of the best strikers in lightweight history. You know, he has wars with Dustin Poirier, Jalen Turner. He's not in the history discussion, but he's definitely in the modern killer discussion. And he has a win over Turner. So Hooker's as tough as they come. He hits really hard. He is impossible to deter. He just doesn't quit ever. I'm going to be picking Dan Hooker in this one. He is like a very heavy underdog in this fight. And it is possible. What does Vegas know? Well, they have probably the right idea. Just my reasoning on this is that Dan Hooker, guys with like these really, really long arms, if they do know how to grapple, that's such an advantage. And on the counter wrestling, Dan Hooker's takedown defense in the UFC in a very long UFC career is 80%. The only guy to really grapple him effectively was Islam Makhachev. So I really am. I'm wondering, can Gamrot get it? He's averaging, like 5 takedowns per 15 minutes. So he's shooting. But if Dan Hooker's just able to keep him off, man, he's got the better punches. He's got deadly knees. I think he brutalizes Gamrot if he can keep it on the feet. That's what I really hope to see as well. So I am picking Dan Hooker against my better judgment.
Yeah, I think Gamrot probably wins this, probably by decision. He's just going to grapple him and control it. Simple as, honestly. Hooker does have a lot of power, but that's exactly why guys like Gamrot have that game plan of taking him down and controlling him in that way. I feel like that takedown accuracy is probably going to decrease by a couple percentage points for Hooker. Gamrot does just fucking shoot these things like there's no other choice. And for him, there kind of isn't because he doesn't really have any other routes to success. Maybe sees a little more stand-up game on average. I'm going to guess that they're probably going to be forced to stand up for a little longer than Gamrot would usually enjoy, but I'm guessing that it's just going to be a classic ground control game. A little bit of ground and pound, win by decision.
God, I hope you're wrong, but you're probably right.
I hate being the rightest guy in the room sometimes.
Ugh. Moving down, we have Tai Tuivasa versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Jairzinho coming off of what I thought was like a legendary beatdown last year, but really it was not. He's the guy who beat the shit out of Shamil during that late replacement main event where Shamil just lost every second of the 4 rounds before he quit on the stool in between rounds 4 and 5. That win looks a lot less good in hindsight. Tai Tuivasa, though, is on like a 3-fight losing streak. He's been getting knocked out. He is a power puncher. He is a very heavy-handed power puncher, but the guy is not technical. The guy is not defensively sound. The guy gets hit a lot and dropped a lot. And really, he just wants to get kind of punch drunk and then drink a beer out of his shoe. And that's an admirable, character to have. That very, like, who gives a shit attitude. Hey, man, we all kind of wish we had it. But Tai, you probably have to take these fights a little bit more seriously and quit getting knocked out or submitted. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, there was a moment when everyone thought he could be really good, and then they matched him up against Francis Ngannou, and Ngannou just decapitated him immediately. And then we kind of knew. He's just another heavyweight. He has okay striking, but he doesn't push the pace. He rarely throws combinations. This fight is kind of hard for me to pick. It really shouldn't be. Like, it should be an obvious Jairzinho Rozenstruik pick, I think, because Ty gets hit all the fucking time. He's 15-7.
Not a good record.
Which, it's not a good record, and a lot of those losses are recent, right?
Yeah. I mean, one cope is that, he got submitted a couple times, but Rozenstruik doesn't really do grappling very much, so,
No, he doesn't, right?
Maybe it's just to strikers. So then there you go. Just, maybe. That was my hope, kind of, is that, he got submitted a couple times. You can't really count those because Rozenstruik's not going to take him down. But then, of course, ignore the KO. That was like the third last loss against Pavlovich.
Well, right. And that was part of Pavlovich smoking the entire heavyweight division on his way to losing the belt, or losing the title fight. But this is the big problem with this matchup, is that Jairzinho would rather hang back and do less and wait to see that all is safe before he moves forward. And Ty has no interest in being safe or careful. The scariest possible scenario is a gun-shy Tai Tuivasa coming off of all these losses. I don't expect that. I expect him to come out and be aggressive. He could very easily walk onto a punch. He could very easily land a punch, too. Jairzinho gets knocked out. So, I'm still going to pick. Anything could happen. Ahead of time, I did scribble down that I was picking Ty, but I've talked myself out of it here live on the podcast. I am going to pick Jairzinho Rozenstruik.
I was going to say, we're going to cut that one down because you're clearly just reasoning yourself out of your fucking pick. I think my big issue with Ty is that 15-7 is a bad fucking record. As you get closer to that 50-50, it just gets harder and harder to pick you. Rozenstruik's got a little bit of reach advantage. Nothing huge, but Tuivasa's just too easily fucking hurt, man. I would be shocked if he doesn't come out there and get rocked at the very least. Maybe this goes to decision, but I feel like this is the dedicated, the UFC offering a heme to the fans after a couple of shitty fight nights. So I'm going to go with Rozenstruik. It's probably going to be KO. What are you going to do? It's life.
What are you going to do? Moving down to our main card opener, we have Li Jingliang, the Leech, versus Carlos Prates. Prates is dangerous, man. I remember in his last fight, he had that just brutal body knee KO. This guy is serious business. He has power in not just both hands, but both elbows and knees as well. The Leech is old. He is a UFC veteran. He has been in the UFC for forever. He trades wins and losses against welterweight talent, and I think this is one of those matchups where he's going to come out on bottom. He's not. I think Carlos Prates probably knocks out the Leech. That's my prediction. Simple as that.
Another kind of no-brainer situation. This is what we would call a feed in the business, where Prates has had 2 UFC fights and has yet to lose one, and Jingliang has been around since, the dinosaurs, and has traded lots of wins and losses. They're putting him out there because at one point he was probably pretty solid. Nowadays he's, he's 36 years old, probably a lot less solid. This is a guy that they're just trying to, it's either going to be, this guy's not actually that good at all, or it's going to be, wow, look at that. He's won 3 in a row. He hasn't lost in the UFC yet. Yippee. I think it's probably going to be the 3-0 after Saturday night.
Yeah. Also, just a quick note. Carlos Prates, 78-inch reach. Dricus du Plessis, 76-inch reach.
Wow.
Just on a reach watch quickly.
Match him up, dude.
Yeah. Getting into our prelims, we have Junior Tafa versus Walter Walker. Tafa is one of the 2 Tafa brothers, these big heavyweight punchers who are kind of doughy and don't have a lot of technique or skill going on. They also just have, as long as we're on reach watch, Junior Tafa is 6'3" and has 72 inches of reach. That can't be right, because I'm 6 foot tall and I have 73 inches of reach.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm sure.
So Like, no, like 72 inches is 6 foot.
Yeah.
That's how, right? So he actually has a negative ape index? That's surprising. He's taking on Walter Walker. Walker has a just boring UFC loss already to, I believe it was Bresky, that guy who got knocked out by the English guy on the undercard of the English card. So Junior Tafa is just a little bit more serious of a fighter. And if he does catch Walker, like the Tafa brothers have serious power. They will knock you out. I'm picking Junior Tafa just because of how bad Walter Walker looked. He's giant. He's like 6'6", you know, he's like an enormous guy, but it doesn't always translate well. Sometimes those bigger dudes are just getting wins because the smaller guys are scared, and I don't think Junior will be.
Yeah, this one's kind of hard for me to pick a little bit. Walker did look like shit in that fight, but I don't know, man. It was his first UFC fight. The light got into his eyes. You know what I mean? He does have the reach advantage, so long as that is genuinely accurate. I don't know. Some of these like new-ish guys in like a heavyweight division, I'm always like, I don't even fucking know, man. Walker does have the better professional record just in general. But Tafa, I don't know. He's just had more fights at the UFC and he's just looked better on average. It doesn't feel fair because Walker looked like shit in his one fight. You know, maybe he looks a lot better in his professional stuff. I didn't go back and look at it. Did you?
This guy trains out of Russia and was born in Brazil. Good luck finding those tapes.
Yeah, exactly right. Gonna need to know some fucking people. You know what? I'll be just a little wacky and go with Walker just for fun. I think he might be able to pull it off. Maybe we'll see what he's actually capable of in the UFC.
Hey, here's hoping you get it wrong and I get it right.
No, why'd you say that to me?
Going down to Josh Kulabau versus Ricardo Ramos. Ramos has had a pretty rough UFC career. Josh Kulabau as well. Kulabau has been matched up against a few other prospects rising up. He has lost those fights when he's been matched up in them, but he hasn't been blown out of the water yet. He's kept things competitive. He's very creative in the octagon. I think that's probably his number one strength, is that he's given looks and he's trying stuff that most guys don't. You know, you can just tell from the way Kulabau is built as well. Like his strength and conditioning is probably not the number one thing he's doing in the gym. So he does like to bring out tricks and techniques that guys haven't seen before. It makes him pretty fun to watch. It's just he often gets outgunned or outmuscled by guys. I don't think Ricardo Ramos is going to be the guy to do that to him. I also don't think of Ramos as he just hasn't looked good in a long time. He's not that old, right? But his UFC career has just not gone according to plan. I'm going to be picking Josh Kulabau in this one.
Yeah, got to go with Kulabau myself. He's coming off a loss, but it didn't even look that bad in that one. It was a split decision. You could probably argue that he won it if you really felt like it. I'm not going to, but you could. This is a guy that he's like, all right. He's like pretty solid. You know what I mean? Ramos is, I think, a little younger. But yeah, his UFC career has just been like an immediate win-loss, just trading them repeatedly. Nothing that impressive ever coming out of it. Kulabau is in sort of a similar position, but it just hasn't been going on as long. And so I'm a little more confident that he's going to be able to not suck ass for, 3 rounds. So I'm going to go with Kulabau.
Yeah, and just like a quick note on Kulabau, it's only 2 fights ago that he's being matched up against Lerone Murphy. And while he did lose that fight, he did not get blown out of the water the way that Barboza did. And I would have thought of Barboza as better than Kulabau. So,
yeah.
But anyways, moving down, Casey O'Neill versus Luana Santos.
Our only
O'Neill,
women.
Yeah, O'Neill ranked number 15 at women's flyweight.
Which means nothing.
Means less than nothing. Just right off the bat, I'm picking Luana Santos. Why? Don't at me.
I'm going to tell you why. Do you want to know why?
Yeah.
Because she hasn't lost to the UFC yet, and she's 24 years old.
Yeah.
And on the converse, O'Neill is, still hasn't been for too long, but she has lost a couple recently. And she's ranked 15 for some reason. We haven't really been considering this. It doesn't matter that much, I guess, but maybe there's like a little bit of like a home crowd advantage thing, if this goes to decision or something. I don't know. Because they're in Australia. Casey O'Neill is Australian.
Yeah, but the crowd can hype you up, to be fair.
Yeah,
like an entire arena
it's a legitimate
chanting
thing,
your name.
yeah. so that can factor in, and because this one's probably going to go to decision if I had to guess, but I don't know. I feel like there's a pretty good chance that this is going to be a Santos win. She's probably like submission or by decision. It doesn't really matter. I think Santos is up and coming, and she's going to be ranked number 15 pretty soon.
Whoa, and it'll mean just as little.
It'll mean just as little.
Going down to Jack Jenkins versus Herbert Burns. I didn't know this Burns was still fighting. This is the brother of Gilbert Burns, the one that it just didn't work out for. I mostly think of Herbert as taking like really brutal losses to guys, and then those guys don't go on to do all that much anyways. Jack Jenkins, on the other hand, younger. He's been doing things okay. I'm picking Jack Jenkins. Herbert Burns sucks. He gets tired. He quits. I don't care if he's done things that are impressive in the UFC. Whenever he runs into trouble, he gives up. And so that's why I'm picking Jack Jenkins, is because this is our Aussie boy. And I imagine he's probably going to show up and fight for his home crowd. And Herbert Burns, dude hasn't looked good in forever. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Burns I think he's got like most of his wins by grappling, by submission and stuff. You could see him mix that in. Maybe that'll be the upset. I don't really think so though. There's probably a good reason why Vegas is putting this at -800 to +550 right now.
Oh my God, I didn't even look.
Hard to not mention that part of it, but there's a good reason. It's because, like Francis said, Herbert Burns sucks.
Yeah.
See you on Sunday when we make the apologizing to Herbert Burns video, but I don't think so.
Unlikely. Yeah, and the other thing too, and this is something that is so common for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys, and this isn't like a dig or whatever, it's just the truth. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu doesn't have good takedowns, so when you come in as a BJJ ace and your number one path to victory is like, I'll jump on his back, but I also can't take a punch, and I don't have any threats, and I don't have a good way to get it to clinch range.
My penis is small.
Right, like his takedown accuracy is 42% in the UFC. His takedown defense even is worse than Jack Jenkins's, right? And
amusing.
Right, and it's just, and his average is 3 per 15 minutes, and most of your wins, 73%, are by submission. It's just like, so often fighters have a game that is so incomplete, you don't understand how their coaches aren't trying to address it. But who cares, man? Burns is going to lose. Jack Jenkins will win. You could bet the house on this one, and you won't make that much money. So moving into
not making that much money. What's going on here?
Tom Nolan versus Alex Reyes. Nolan is a liability. I picked against Tom Nolan the last time that he fought. He ended up winning that fight by knockout, but he found a way to get dropped in the first round before that. He's been knocked out in the UFC already. That's his one professional loss. Why is he minus 1,200 right now?
I'd love to know. Why does it like this?
Odds are it's because Alex Reyes has done nothing impressive. This is lightweight, and I've never heard of the guy before, and I try to keep track of lightweights.
Well, he's kind of in a weird position, I think, because here's what I looked this up beforehand. Reyes debuted in 2017, right?
Yeah.
He got knocked out. And then as far as I know, he didn't fight again until 2023, where he got knocked out.
So this is his UFC record. Yeah, Mike Perry did knock him out.
Right, like he probably went back and did some like non-UFC stuff, I'm guessing. But like in the UFC, that's all he's done is get knocked out 2 times, like 5 years apart, 6 years apart. So,
now hold up.
Right, like, well, I don't know. I didn't look up his pre stuff, but maybe he's doing some other shit, or he's done some other shit in between. But I think it might be he hasn't done anything.
Nope, just double checking live on the podcast. He did not do anything else in between 2017 and 23.
And that's why
both of those losses were by KO.
That's why I think that's why it's a minus 1,200.
Yeah, pretty good bet. Tom Nolan getting a layup here. He's going to get another knockout win. He's also 6'3" at lightweight.
Tall guy.
He's hard to get to. He does the tall guy defense where they lean back with their chin up in the air. So he's going to get knocked out eventually. But it's not going to be in this one. I'll pick Tom Nolan.
Yeah, kind of a crazy situation to be in. I mean, I could see, like, in theory, Reyes could win. I don't know. It's such a weird thing that he's even fighting. debuting in 2017 and then that skip. And then honestly, like another kind of skip. It's been almost a year since he fought last in the UFC. He's 37 years old. This is clearly a feed, but it's one of the weirder feeds I've ever seen. I got to go with Nolan. I don't know. Weird. Strange.
I mean, he clearly just signed a 3-fight UFC deal, and they owe him one more fight.
I guess, right.
Moving down, we have Song Kenan versus Ricky Glenn. Song Kenan just hasn't done anything impressive thus far in their welterweight division. Ricky Glenn hasn't done all that much either. Neither one of these guys. This is another kind of like mirror match where, yes, technically these guys have different styles, but would you know it? Could you go back and watch their fights and really decide who is doing what better? The one area that I will say, these actually, oh my God, check this out. Song Kenan is on average taking 6.38 strikes per minute. That is a very high stat.
Jesus
that is
Christ.
And both of these guys have a higher absorbed per minute than landed per minute, which is just never a good stat to have, right? But to have more than 2 strikes per minute extra on your absorbed per minute over your landed per minute, it's just not a good look, man. Both of these guys are both of these guys have most of their wins coming by KO. Neither of these guys win by decision either, which is really interesting. So they're both pushing the action. Neither one is shooting takedowns either. So this should be like a really stupid slugfest.
Yeah, like I think it is honestly just like we're going to rile the crowd up a little bit, put some stupid, just dumb shit in there where these guys are going to beat the hell out of each other. I'm going to go with Song Kenan, honestly. Maybe a stupid decision, honestly, based on more on vibes than anything else. But, glory to the CCP, you know what I mean?
I hear you. I understand why you would say that, seeing as they bribe you, but
they pay me.
Ricky Glenn, man, just that songs absorbed per minute is so fucked
up. That's why I kind of wanted to pick him. I'm like, man, he could take a punch.
Clearly,
he could take a lot of punches.
I'm gonna pick Ricky Glenn. I can't stand by taking that many punches. Wow. But I hope one of them takes that many.
Someone's gonna be taking a lot of fucking punches this Saturday.
Yeah. And our card opener.
This probably won't even be what it is, dude. These two guys are going to get replaced. Apparently Stuart Nicole is from the Solomon Islands, which is an interesting factoid.
Yeah. I actually, you know what? So I'm going to shuffle around my won't pick onto this one because, dude, who even knows? 2 flyweights that you haven't heard of. One of them on
his name's Jesus, though.
Jesus.
No, it's Jesus.
Jesus Aguilar.
I mean, the thing is, Jesus has won a couple fights recently, right? Nicole is clearly just like a last-minute replacement scenario. I kind of just wanted to pick him because he's from the Solomon Islands. Is there any Solomon Islands fighters? Any other ones?
I don't think so. And I mean, you're perfectly allowed to do that.
He's gonna be like a Polynesian, motherfucker, right? Like that's who he's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
That could mean something, couldn't it? In theory.
I mean, hypothetically, we both picked Jairzinho Rosenstrike for no other reason than because he's from Suriname.
Yeah, man, Suriname's a pretty cool place.
Yeah, you know what? I'll side with you. I'll also pick Stuart Nickel.
Oh, dude, you should probably pick Jesus because I'm going to be wrong.
Just this, no, because you're going to be right.
No, I'm wrong. Nah, Stuart, I don't know, dude. He's all right. I don't know what I think about him. He's a cool guy. I guess he has a little bit of reach advantage. There you go. Reach watch has justified our pick.
He's slightly taller.
Yeah, that's probably like wrong. That's probably not even what it is, but whatever. It's fine.
And that has been our predictions for UFC 305. God, I hope Dricus wins. I really hope Israel loses. Please let the dog jerking off end.
And if he doesn't, then that's fine. Good job, Asanya. Jerk off your dog some more. But I hope he brings his dog to the octagon and jerks it off.
That dog's actually dead, by the way.
Well, hope he digs it up and jerks it off.